This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Monday, October 26th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, commitment to a peaceful resolution as fighting continues on the ground. We've got the latest on the new ceasefire announced in the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. COVID cases on the rise. Those closest to the vice president hit with the virus. What is next for his campaign? Clemency granted for a prisoner. We're going to explore the question of whether this could help the president's chances of re-election. Plus, a look at a documentary hoping to keep a newspaper in business. All those stories and more are ahead in this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to begin this half hour with President Trump announcing that Israel and Sudan have now normalized relations. It is the third in a series of Muslim countries making peace with Israel in what's become known as the Abraham Accords. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl is on this story.
President Trump paved the way for the Sudan-Israel peace deal when he removed Sudan from the list of state sponsors of terrorism.
It's a very special deal. For much of recent history, the people of Sudan were ruled over by brutal Islamic dictatorships. It was the home of Osama bin Laden, a place of terror, genocide, and many other tragedies. Today, great people of Sudan are in charge, and new democracy is taking root.
Trump said the deal would unlock new trade, education, and research opportunities.
For decades, Sudan has been at a state of war with Israel. They have been in a state of war and boycotted Israeli goods. There was no relationship whatsoever. Today's peace agreement will enhance Israel's security and end Sudan's long isolation from the world.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hailed the deal as another dramatic breakthrough.
What a great change. In Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, they adopted in 1967 the three no's of the Arab League. No to peace with Israel, no recognition of Israel, and no negotiations with Israel. But today, Khartoum is saying yes to peace with Israel, yes to recognition of Israel, and yes to normalization with Israel.
Trump and Netanyahu both believe that other Muslim and Middle East countries will soon follow, including Saudi Arabia. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Senators are set to confirm Amy Coney Barrett to the U.S. Supreme Court today. Now questions are arising about the potential impact of the new justice. Could she help end Obamacare, as Democrats claim? Might her openly pro-life stance view lead to the end of legalized abortion? CBN's Paul Strand takes a more realistic look at Barrett's likely impact.
The Democrats' major argument against Barrett is that 1 week after the election, when justices hear the case challenging the Affordable Care Act, her decision will doom Obamacare. She's just one vote, however, and in past cases, at least 6 of the other justices have been willing to declare parts of the Affordable Care Act unconstitutional while leaving the act itself standing.
The majority said that Obamacare is such a big law, it's got so many provisions, that the rest of it would survive. And that's probably what would happen again, no matter what Justice Barrett would say were she to join the court.
Opponents' other main claim is since Barrett's pro-life, she'll join with the 4 other supposed pro-life justices and wipe out legalized abortion. Not so fast.
Judge Barrett's own words show us she doesn't necessarily think the Supreme Court is ready to do away with Roe v. Wade.
Or the ruling in Planned Parenthood versus Casey that solidified Roe, as pointed out in this discussion examining Barrett's cases and statements.
At a luncheon in 2013, she said, quote, "It's very unlikely at this point that the court is going to overturn Roe or Roe as curbed by Casey. The fundamental element that the woman has a right to choose abortion will probably stand."
Still, some either hope or fear Barrett's presence will change that.
The argument is the more pro-life justices on the Supreme Court, the surer the end to legalized abortion. But the issue is more complicated than that.
As we saw in an earlier abortion case this year, it appears the other 4 likely pro-life votes can't necessarily be counted on to form a majority with Barrett.
Both pro-life and pro-choice activists are overselling the case that she represents a threat to Roe because there aren't already 4 votes to overturn it in the first place.
Even if the addition of Barrett were to form a solid 6-3 conservative majority, the talk is if the Democrats win a Senate majority, they would pack the court with nominees who would likely wash away that conservative majority.
The next step is to try to cancel this victory, undermine it completely by adding seats to the Supreme Court to override this vote for the rule of law and for sticking to the text of the Constitution and law. What they want is to have a super legislature of unelected judges who are going to cancel out what that law and the Constitution says.
The question is, will those taking that route look at history and follow through?
It's a bad idea. It was a bad idea when FDR did it, as Ruth Bader Ginsburg herself acknowledged, as even Bernie Sanders acknowledges. And when you're to the left of Bernie Sanders and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you got to take a step back and think, is this really the right place to be?
As to what others hope Barrett's impact will be, these supporters were clear.
Amy Coney Barrett is what we had in mind at the beginning of the feminist revolution. She is the face of feminism. She is the face of feminist freedom.
Amy Coney Barrett shatters the pro-choice narrative that women can't do it all. They say, well, we need abortion to be successful. Women need abortion so that they can focus on their career. And you know what Amy Coney Barrett did? She said, I'm not going to sacrifice my faith. I'm not going to sacrifice my family. I'm not going to sacrifice my marriage. And I'm not going to sacrifice my career. She did it all.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Worship leader Sean Foyt brought thousands together to lift up the name of Jesus. His Let Us Worship tour is an effort to lift up our nation during this difficult time. Foyt has traveled across the country this year, bringing hope and healing to millions of believers. During an interview with CBN News this week, Foyt explained he chose October 25th for the worship event to support the final confirmation vote of Amy Coney Barrett to the U.S. Supreme Court. There's been a recent COVID-19 surge in parts of the United States. More coronavirus cases were reported on Friday than any other day since the pandemic began. Deaths are increasing in 26 states, and 38 states are seeing a rise in hospitalizations. Ohio and Illinois are hitting daily records. Meanwhile, New Jersey saw its highest daily cases level since May, with hospitalizations doubling since the summer. As hospitals deal with the influx of coronavirus patients, one hospital is treating some COVID patients from their homes with customized kits.
They can be closely monitored by COVID-19 care team experts, nurses and physicians, but they can recover from the illness at home.
The customized packages are for patients who are with pre-existing conditions who test positive, but their symptoms aren't yet severe enough for them to be hospitalized. At least 3 people in Vice President Mike Pence's circle have reportedly tested positive for COVID-19, including the Vice President's Chief of Staff, Mark Short. The Vice President's office says that he will continue moving forward with his campaign schedule. The election is just 8 days away. Short is a top aide to the Vice President and is in constant contact with the Vice President. At least 2 other staffers have recently tested positive for COVID-19. Pence's office released a statement saying that he and the Second Lady have tested negative for COVID-19 on Saturday. Black voter turnout dropped in 2016 for the first time in 20 years, but those who did go to the polls largely supported Hillary Clinton. 2 authors, one black and one white, believe there's a turnaround this time and say President Trump will be the beneficiary over former Vice President Joe Biden. CBN's Eric Phillips spoke with them about that and their new book.
Vernon Robinson and Bruce Eberly point out that Black Americans were at one time overwhelmingly Republican. Then came the presidency of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, which led to a big shift because of what they call a charm offensive from Democrats. While it hasn't shifted back in almost 75 years, the authors expect 2020 to usher in a big swing.
This movement of Black Americans from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party is the biggest untold story of the 2020 election.
Vernon Robinson and Bruce Eberly co-authored the book Coming Home: How Black Americans Will Re-elect Trump. They contend that blacks, a sought-after demographic long beholden to the Democrat Party, will make a switch.
I really think we're going to see 20 and 25% of the black vote be cast for Donald Trump.
They believe the Republican message is resonating, especially on issues like abortion.
The issue of life is important because it's a gateway issue for both Black and Hispanic voters. We would not be in a minority status to Hispanics if 21 million Black babies hadn't been killed.
They see the Black church being a catalyst.
Because they have much more in this, feel the same way about the issues that we do with conservatives than they certainly do with liberal Democrats like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
This despite Harris becoming the first Black woman to be nominated as vice president for a major party.
I don't think this was a home run with the bases loaded or even a home run. I think it was probably a nice double to have her on the ticket, but I'm not convinced it's going to really change the way voters, Black voters, will look at this election.
Those two individuals have put more Black men in prison than possibly anybody else on the planet. That's why I refer to it as the mass incarceration ticket.
Bottom line, they say Black voters are ready for the GOP to reach out.
When Republicans climb out from under their table hiding and go on the offense, then a significant number of Black voters will support the Republican candidates, and it doesn't take that much.
You have to ask for the business. And this year, millions of dollars are going to be spent by the official Trump campaign by Black Americans to reelect the president.
The men say the Republican Party has regained the moral high ground on issues like life, job creation, and wealth creation, all areas that could attract the Black vote. Eric Phillips, CBN News.
Coming up, life in prison no longer. See the reaction from a man given a second chance by President Donald Trump. We've got the story for you coming up. Stay with us.
Yeah, buddy.
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain, get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Get the top political news and analysis from Washington on Faith Nation, tonight at 6 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel.
President Donald Trump granted clemency to an Indiana man serving life for a nonviolent drug offense. Charles Duke Tanner is a former professional boxer from Gary, Indiana. He posted a video last week thanking the president for granting him clemency.
Foremost, I want to give all the praise and glory to God. Thank you for hearing me. But President Trump, I just want to thank you for giving me a second chance and believing in me and reading my petition. I'm just so thankful.
FaithWire's Dan Andros joins us now to discuss how this latest move could affect the president's chances for re-election. So, Dan, first give us a little background on Mr. Tanner. How did he end up in jail and then get the attention of the president?
Yeah, well, he was a very successful boxer. And, excuse me, he was very well known in his community, a successful boxer, had been on televised fights, actually, on ESPN, so very well known. And he fully admits to getting involved in drug dealing. And so he admits to his crime, but he had no previous criminal record prior to this arrest in 2004. And he was accused of leading a drug conspiracy, again, which he fully admits to. He was originally sentenced to life in bars because back then the punishment for dealing crack cocaine was a little bit harsher back then, leading to a sentence of life behind bars. It was later reduced to 30 years in prison, and he wasn't slated to get out until 2030. But the case was brought to President Trump's attention by Alice Johnson, who we've covered on this program, and she was pardoned for her nonviolent drug crimes by President Trump. She got a full pardon, and she's now been working with the administration to identify other nonviolent criminals serving extra harsh sentences, and Mr. Tanner was one of the ones that she found.
Wow. The president granted that clemency just one day before facing off against Vice President Joe Biden last week. Will this move impact his election chances, you think?
Well, it's hard to say exactly sure. That the polls are narrowing here in the recent few days, but it certainly provided a very visual and visceral and emotional example of one of the issues that did come up in the debate, which was talking about just criminal justice reform and about how each president would treat and help and the African American community, and this particular issue. And story is very, very powerful. And President Obama, Joe Biden's administration denied this exact case, to be seen, and he stayed behind bars because they didn't do what President Trump did. So hard to say exactly how it'll play out, but it certainly provided a strong visual for President Trump.
Now that you say that, how does the president's rate of clemency compare to that of the last administration?
Yeah, well, in his first term, Trump has granted pardons to 27 people and clemency to 16 others. And by comparison, during his first term, President Obama granted pardons to 22 and clemency to only 1. So a little bit higher of a rate there for President Trump.
All right, Dan Andros, thank you so much. I'll remind you at home that you can catch Faith Wire right here on the CBN News Channel. It begins at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Still ahead, fighting to keep a newspaper alive. See how a documentary hopes to keep Stars and Stripes in action. We'll be right back.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. Not on my watch. That's what President Trump tweeted about cutting funding for Stars and Stripes. It's been the newspaper of record for the U.S. military for more than a century. People have died delivering the paper to the troops. Now a filmmaker hopes his documentary on Stars and Stripes will become a call to action. Here's Eric Phillips.
When Stephen Barber first came up with the idea for his film, The World's Most Dangerous Paper Route, he believed it would be wildly popular, especially among service members worldwide. He did not expect it to play a role in keeping the newspaper's presses printing.
This is their hometown paper away from home.
It's about being connected to home, because a lot of times these guys, once they're gone, and they can't make phone calls. They can't send emails, and the only thing they have is the Stars and Stripes.
Stephen Barber has made several military-themed films, but admits this one is his favorite.
I've seen this movie 10 times.
Told in documentary style, The World's Most Dangerous Paper Route focuses on the 150-year-old Stars and Stripes.
Getting stories from the battlefield can be harrowing, even deadly.
A lot of journalists have been killed in these wars.
Something former reporter Linda Rausch knows all too well.
When you see that, you're sorry. God, it's just hard for me to go back.
Every single day, the paper is distributed to U.S. military installations.
The Stars and Stripes paper route is all over the Middle East. Kuwait, Iraq, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia.
Hence the title of the film, suggested to Barber by one of the paper's reporters.
And he just looked at me and he said, "I got the great title, Mike. We'll call it The World's Most Dangerous Paper Route." And I was like, oh my God. I mean, I'd love to tell you that I came up with the title, but I didn't. And that was what really blew my mind. Was it's not very often you get a title that draws you in immediately.
Little did Barber know that during production, the Defense Department would plan to stop publishing the paper, moving its $15 million budget to other areas. A group of bipartisan lawmakers lobbied to stop it, however, including Senator Lindsey Graham.
But when I went to Germany, it was a big deal when the paper came. When you're in Iraq and Afghanistan, it was a really huge deal.
And he told me when I interviewed him a couple of years ago, there's no way that this paper is ever going down. Not on my watch. I won't let it happen. Lindsey Graham got it to the White House. The president saw it.
And that led to a presidential tweet that said, "The United States of America will not be cutting funding to Stars and Stripes magazine under my watch. It will continue to be a wonderful source of information to our great military." The Pentagon rescinded its order to stop the presses.
You know, because anybody who would watch the film, there's no way they'd shut this newspaper down. People have died delivering this paper to the troops. I don't think any other publication in the world can say that. And a movie is like a cake. You know, you put in the flour, you put in the sugar, you put in the baking powder, and it doesn't always rise. But in this particular case, this film rose to the occasion.
Though the paper is still being published for now, the question over its funding remains. Lawmakers have indicated Congress may directly fund the paper, though that line was not included in its initial budget. The World's Most Dangerous Paper Route is available on Amazon Prime. Eric Phillips, CBN News.
Although Stars and Stripes is part of the Department of Defense's budget, it must earn most of its operating budget. That's what keeps the paper independent and free of censorship. Now, if you want to support the mission of Stars and Stripes, simply go to our website at cbnnews.com. There is where you'll find a link. Taking the food on the road to reach people who have limited access. Just ahead, we're going to look at a mobile grocery store and the people who are running it. Stay with us.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film. I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Check out the CBN News Daily Rundown podcast each weekday with me, Caitlin Burke. Click on the show tab at cbnnews.com where you can listen and subscribe.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
As the nations rage, you can stand with Israel.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
Call 1-800-700-7000 and get to life.
This is our nature as a country.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is, this is what I'm doing.
Support Israel in their time of need. Get to Life, now available on DVD. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
And I wish that other people throughout the world could see this side of Israel.
In states across the country, you can now find what's come to be known as food deserts. Those are communities lacking adequate access to fresh fruit and vegetables. Now, with growing food insecurity brought on by the pandemic, one New Jersey group is hitting the road to help. The Eat Well mobile grocery store is rolling out around cities considered to be food deserts in the Garden State. Inside the 40-foot retrofitted bus, it looks pretty similar to produce aisles of a normal grocery store. With all sorts of fruit and vegetable options, the bus will stop at senior centers, low-income housing complexes, and other places where people need help and access to fresh food. Time now for your Monday motivation. I want to leave you with this thought. Never eye anyone else's life with envy. You're walking your own path, and God has blessings with your name on them. And guess what? What He has for you is just for you. No one can take your blessing. It is for you. With that word, I encourage you to make today a marvelous Monday. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Thank you so much for watching. I want to remind you, you can also find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us at that address, newswatch@cbn.com. We'll see you right here tomorrow.